for our success.
Conversation.
We are just so delighted to have you with us today. We have a wonderful show that I know that you will enjoy, as well as get a lot of good information. Our guest today is Mr. Andre Bailey, who is the owner of Serenity Funeral Home here in Las Vegas. And I'll tell you a little bit more about him. But hey there, Mary. I want to say hello to my partners, make sure everybody's on. Oh, how you doing, Marquise?
I'm doing fine.
Marquise in Detroit.
To Lansing, Michigan.
Yeah.
To borrow a quote from my late uncle Robert Sneed, it's good to be here.
Yes, it is. Yes,
good
it
to
is.
be here.
Yeah.
Hey, Andre, good to see you.
Yes.
We're so excited.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're excited to have you on today.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Yes, Mr. Andre Bailey is our guest today. He has a number of different qualifications and things that he has done. He is a graduate of Cal State University in criminal justice and psychology. He also is the managing partner with his wife of Serenity Funeral Home here in Las Vegas, which is very pertinent to what we're talking about today, and does a lot of things in the community, because his motto is that, who best to serve the community than the people in the community. And on top of all of that, he still finds time to coach his daughter's volleyball team. What, 11 to 15-year-olds, you said, Andre?
15 and under.
Oh, okay, 15 and under.
Yeah.
Okay. So he manages to do all of that, but he is a longtime family friend of ours. And I'm just delighted to have him, come on the show today to tell us about these final expenses and how important this topic really is. And so I'm going to start out by telling you what happened to me and how Andre helped my family out. I had a cousin and his wife lost her brother, and the brother was in transition from one hospital to the next, and he passed in transition. So when they got to the hospital, another funeral home in the city just vamped on the body and said, we're taking it, and then told the family that they owed $500 for picking up the body. That's just picking up the body, although they had given no authenticity. I mean, had not authorized them to do that at all. That's something that they just did. So the family called me and I called Andre. Andre said, no, you don't have to pay the $500. I will deal with it. And he told them what to do. We were so grateful. The family they're still thanking me and thanking him for what he did to assist them during that time of so much stress. And so, Andre, I guess, what are some of the things that this topic is so important, and people put it off, I guess, kind of thinking like, if I talk about it, it's going to happen, So,
Linda, before he goes in there, can we just hear from him a little bit of, his motivation, what got him started, what what I'm saying? I just a little bit of, we want everybody to get to know him, because we learned so much about him during our production development meeting, I would love for our listeners to hear a little bit about Andre as well from him.
Yeah. Your background.
Well, I am born and raised in Las Vegas, so I am a true native. My parents are born and raised here in Las Vegas, and just on my mother's side alone, I have 7 aunts and 6 uncles born and raised in Las Vegas. And so we've been here a long time. My grandfather's from Tyler, Texas, and my grandmother is from Louisiana. And so they moved to Vegas a long time ago and decided to raise a family here. And so I come from a very big family on my mom's side, and we love this community. We've been in this city and in this community for an awful long time. And My dad is in the funeral home business. He has been in the funeral home business for over 40 years. And so that's where being in the funeral home business comes from. Before I actually got involved in the funeral home business, I was involved in mental and behavioral health here in Las Vegas. And so I was one of the mental and behavioral health officers to go out and work with people who suffer from depression or anxiety or schizophrenia or bipolar. And so that's kind of where my background is in that psychology realm right there. And so just knowing a lot of people here in the Las Vegas community has really opened up my eyes to really just being a person that people can kind of reach and kind of touch when they're needing anything here in Las Vegas. And so just, hooking up with my dad and wanting to actually have a funeral home of our own, we decided to open up a funeral home so we can serve the greater population of Las Vegas. So in a nutshell, that's kind of who I am.
Yeah, but it seems like your credentials as, being in psychology and also that hospitality part,
yeah,
just really makes you a very good candidate for what you do, in the funeral.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually graduated from the International School of Hospitality here in Las Vegas because at the time I was going for a position of front desk here at one of the casinos at the Palazzo, concierge. And so I learned a lot, but also just growing up here and having a lot of friends in and out of my home, and my mom being able to keep the doors open for my friends and family that needed a place to stay and things like that. A lot of people forget that this is Las Vegas and a lot of our locals work on the strip. And so I saw a lot of things early on in my life from my mom's friends who sometimes they would have to stay with us because they, worked in the casino and they would gamble their checks away sometimes. And sometimes we opened up our doors for them to actually come and stay with us. So I've learned really early how to set aside myself to help someone else. And so that's kind of been embedded in me through my mom.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
During your transition period from mental health into the funeral service business, did you always want to follow in your father's footsteps, or how did this come about, you getting into the business?
Well, it was really originally just to help him open up a funeral home. And at the time, I was supposed to just be a silent partner, but I had to really kind of dive into the business that I was in. And so it was a really easy transition because I was still dealing with different types of personalities and different types of people inside of the funeral home. Sometimes people come through the funeral home and they are, really, really sad, confused, lost, and sometimes just don't know what to do next. And so, being able to help people and be there for people has always been a strength of mine. And so it was a pretty easy transition.
I can imagine in your line of work, in your business, that you have come across some things that are virtually what we not believe or see or experience, because this is a time where families, individuals are grief stricken with the loss of a loved one. So share that with us.
Yeah, sometimes families come in, and I think the number one thing is with families is they don't know the process. And so, we feel here at Serenity that we have an obligation to kind of teach people the process, or make people more aware of things that they need to do when it comes to pre-planning or putting together your final wishes. And so sometimes people don't want to talk about it, as Marianne spoke earlier, and Linda Dugan spoke earlier about it being kind of like taboo. We don't want to talk about it. You know, if we talk about it, you know, it's going to happen. And so there's a quote that I tell people all the time, and it's one of my favorite quotes, is we didn't get a chance to plan our way in. And so it's very pertinent for us to plan our way out.
I
And
like
so we have to be able to
Yeah.
have that conversation and be able to be comfortable enough to help each other and educate each other when it comes to final expenses.
that.
Let me just share with our viewers my own personal experience, something that had happened this year alone. My younger brother passed away unexpectedly. And when he passed away, there was no insurance. There was no will. There was no obituary. There was virtually nothing. So the burden of planning my brother's funeral, the cost, writing the obituary, contacting friends, that fell on me. But I want to say this, it became a labor of love. And it gave me purpose, because although he did not plan his burial, his funeral, I was blessed to step in, and we gave him a tremendous send-off. And so it's about awareness, people. Why should we plan for burial? Why should there be insurance? This is why, because people die unexpectedly. I didn't expect my brother to die. Illnesses, accidents, blah, 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 etc. Things happen, gun violence, and so on and so on. So it behooves adults, husbands, wives, to start discussing, start planning your final plans, your burial expenses. And so I cannot stress enough the importance, because oftentimes when someone dies and there is no insurance, someone puts up a GoFundMe page. So I'll let you speak on that.
Yeah. Can you kind of tell us what are some of the things that you see that are needed, steps that we really need to be doing?
Well, number one step is we need to get away from the GoFundMes.
Yes.
It just tells people, and it lets other family members know that we weren't prepared. And so sometimes when people die unexpectedly, that happens more times than none.
Yes.
A lot of times people aren't expecting their loved ones to abruptly die. I have another quote. I have a million quotes, but I have another quote that I tell families, that we have to be able to plan for our way out. Death and taxes are certain. Okay. And so if we make an effort to properly plan, it will help people like Marquise out in the family that may have to step up financially, or get other family members together to have a family meeting about how are we going to bury my brother or my son. it's a very hard conversation. And sometimes family members don't know how to respond. Sometimes family members become really agitated with each other because one family member is being looked at to financially carry somebody else in the family. And that's not really fair for that person. And so I always tell people, if you love your family, love them enough to start getting your things in order. I told Linda Dugan, it's a big thing of mine. And I say it's a church hymn that we used to sing a long time ago when I was a kid. Is get your house in order. Make sure that everything in your house is in order, because we see a lot of families come in the funeral home and they break up. They split apart because that one family member that is financially obligated or pushed to be obligated to handle the final expenses, they become bitter, they become angry, and they become upset. And then all of a sudden you have, 5 to 10 people who want to have a say so in a person's burial, but no one has a dime or the money to contribute. You have siblings arguing, mom didn't want to wear that dress, she wants to wear this dress, and I'm going to keep the car, and no, I'm the oldest, I need to keep the car. And so all of those little things that we find really minute need to be taken care of. Now, I have a grandfather that is 97 years old, and my grandmother is 91, and they're still here. They live here in Las Vegas, and I picked them up and took them to do a will. And I mean, they have everything written in their will, all the way down to my grandfather's ties. Because believe it or not, siblings and family members will fight over the smallest of things, the smallest
Family
of
feud.
things.
Feud.
Yes.
Family feud.
I was impressed with Marquise. I thought that, final arrangement, planning was, just making sure your burial was taken care of, and you had life insurance or whatever. And then Marquise went through his folder, and Marquise will share that with us in that next show when we have the person who helped him put it together on our show. Marquise can tell you her name, but it's amazing, and he can mention it today or whatever. But he has that folder, and he made me look like, I was like, oh my gosh, he has everything. He considered everything laid out
from A to Z. Everything.
Yes. And when we were talking, Andre, you told us about what all you do with people, and I was blown away. And so in a second, I want you to mention some of those things that you told us. I wrote down a few of them that I was like, wow, I didn't realize that you do all that, and that you can get all that from a funeral home, for one thing. But I want to thank you, because after our meeting the other day, I put down all my pertinent family members, that means all my siblings and everything. And I looked and I said, oh my God, if we died, if all of us died, who would that all fall on? And how much, a lot of times we are more concerned about our own. And then when our loved ones pass, guess what? It's tapping into our own. Because we were just more concerned about getting our stuff in order, which causes the frustration, which is, yes, Marquise has his stuff laid out. Laid out, but his brother didn't. So what happens? That fell on Marquise. So that's what's happening, and families are just, we're not thinking about, we're not, you know what? we got so many other things. But one thing I've learned, especially with my son passing in October, and thank God that there was, provision for him. But one thing I've learned is death happens. Death happens just like life happens. People are born, but people die every day.
Right.
And our death is going to happen. And when I went down there, everything you said to us clicked. I looked on there and I said, man, I looked at my sister's children, my children. I looked at my brothers, even my brothers. And I thought, you know what? Okay, so this is the first time I actually thought about cremation for myself. Because I hadn't thought about cremation before thinking burial, but I thought about cremation. I started thinking about what planning. So I said, you know what? We're going to have to get with Andre because I am here at the time in Las Vegas. Still, I've been here for a few months, but I'm still here. And I was like, I'm going to have to get with Andre. We got to come up with a plan, like a family plan. We got to do something because I got too many family members that $255 and Social Security still only giving $255.
That's it.
Towards, you could pay, hundreds of thousands into Social Security, you're still gonna get $255 from them for burial expenses, right? So anyway, but you guys offer so much more than just a burial plan. So
if I could just chime in here.
Is it standard for families to expect that kind of service from most funeral directors? Andre, tell us first of all what you do.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am I'm the owner of Serenity Funeral Home, but I am also a funeral arranger. And so what a funeral arranger does is we're licensed by the state to actually sit down with families and discuss pricing, discuss cremation, discuss burial, discuss anything that comes with a person passing away. So you have to be licensed for that. And so sometimes when families come in, I sit down with them and I write out every single thing that they want to do. Talk to them about finances, because sometimes when families come in, they don't know if their loved ones have a life insurance policy. They're in mom's room, tearing the room apart, looking for a policy. They're doing, barbecue dinners on the side to try to, raise the money, and car washes and GoFundMe's, like Marquis said. But we also have other avenues here, like financial institutions that they can kind of reach out for, because they will give you funding for a burial and things like that. You just have to qualify, like they run your credit and things like that. So, I sit down with the family and I talk with the family on absolutely everything that they want to do from A to Z. I have a buddy of mine who mom passed away, and they wasn't sure if she had a policy or not. And so they tore the house up looking for a policy, couldn't find a policy. But what they found in her top drawer was a note. And in that note, it said absolutely everything that she wanted. She even had the day of the week that she wanted her funeral service. She said, I want this dress that's in my closet next to my shoes. She had everything lined out in this letter on everything that she wanted. And my friend and his siblings, they just cried because they could not believe that their mom had already took care of everything. She already answered those questions that most families have when they sit down with me. Is, we don't know if mom wants to be buried. We don't know if mom wants to be cremated. We don't know. We don't know what to do. We don't know if she wanted people to view her. We didn't know, people have these questions. And so it's really hard when we're sitting with families, but, it is very important to have an open ear and listen, because sometimes we can keep families together, because sometimes what we find when I'm sitting down with families is families break apart. They break apart because they can't get along. one family member wants to cremate mom so that they can save some money from the life insurance. And the other families are saying mom didn't believe in cremation. She wanted to be buried. And so, they're arguing and bickering, back and forth. And so this is very important. If you love your families and love your family and love your kids, to put this together so that they're not left to wonder what we're going to do once you pass.
Mhm, mhm.
I noticed you said that you all you have the print shop, or you're about to open a print shop, but
Yeah, we're opening up a printing shop.
yeah, where you can print the all your printing things that you need, and then you got a flower shop, a
Florist.
floral shop next door. Repast space, you're going to be having that as well, so that you have the repast there. You have also the grief and counseling, the counseling and grief. That was kind of something that I was like, what, really, at a funeral?
And I could,
Mhm.
yeah, and I can elaborate on that a little bit more. So
Okay.
here at the funeral home, we have a 300-person chapel, because sometimes when people pass, they may not have a church home. And
Mhm.
so we always like to have that space for our families that may not have a church home. Okay. We have a list of pastors that we go through that will come and sometime officiate a person's funeral service. We have a flower shop next door. We're working on getting the printing shop open so that we can print obituaries and programs. And, sometimes people want to get, mom or dad picture on t-shirts and things like that. And we just got licensed for our repast space. And so I wanted to have all of that in one building so that it will save and help families without having to run around town looking for a print shop, looking for a florist, looking for a repast space. Everything is here on site, and we will cater to you and the family. And so that is a big thing. But that's a great question, Marianne, about the grief counseling. Let's just say that a mom passes away, and you go to a funeral service and you go to the repast. Most people are consoling the adults,
Mhm.
right?
Right. Yep.
But it's not often where people are going to console the kids.
Mhm.
Mm.
Mhm.
So what we do here is we have family grief counseling, and where kids can come in and have that grief counseling. That is coming to talk to someone. I know back in the day, uh, it was just a taboo thing too of, going to a therapist. Don't go and tell nobody your business, And so, I'm really glad that we're in the age that we are now in 2022, where it's starting to be more acceptable to go and talk to someone about your struggles, or just things that may be going on in your life. And so we offer that grief counseling here at the funeral home. And also, we have a nonprofit that is attached to the funeral home that is the Mardonna Leonard Foundation. And what we do also with that nonprofit is say that mom passes away, and she leaves her kids behind. There's someone in that family that is going to have to take those kids in.
Yeah.
And sometimes people are already on a fixed income. And so if I have to take my brother's kids in, that may be a small burden for me, because number one, I don't want them to be awarded to the state. Number two, I would rather them be together and be with me on my fixed income already. But what we do here is we partner with a food pantry, and around the holidays, we give our families a call who have taken in those kids in their family because they need help around the holidays. And so we like to separate ourselves from other funeral homes because we're family owned, and we really want to give back to the community. And so, just being able to give school supplies, give food, offer grief counseling, that just kind of sets us apart from everyone else.
Mhm.
Well,
Absolutely
I
wonderful.
can imagine that COVID pandemic has left a lot of children orphaned. Um, in some cases, both parents have succumbed and died uh, from the from COVID. So yeah, offering those type of services are just, you know, they're needed, they're wanted, and it establishes trust with you, your organization, your funeral home, that these services are being offered. So uh, I tip my hat to you and what you're doing for the community.
I appreciate that.
Yes. Andre,
I
you're
want,
good.
I want to, I want to take a second here just for a moment to welcome our viewers and to say thank you for joining us. And just to read some of the comments. Great. Stacy says, great conversation. These are great points. Thank you, Stacy. Definitely, this conversation is well needed. Alicia says, I am truly enjoying the conversation. Everything is so true. When a loved one passed, when my mother passed, she had everything laid out. What garment she wants to wear from head to top. I guess she head to toe or whatever. Her plot was paid for, her obituary was written, who she wanted to sing and speak.
Mm-hmm.
And Andre, she says, you are a truly awesome entrepreneur with everything in one location is excellent. And your youth grief counseling is very important because they carry grief the longest in understanding what has happened. And I can tell you, my grown children are still carrying grief from the loss of my son too.
Right.
So she says, thank you. And thank you all for joining the conversation. We love it when you leave comments. We love it when you participate in a conversation. And so we truly, truly thank you for that. I wanted to just to take out a moment to do that. I'm sorry, Linda, you were saying something.
Yeah, I was just going to ask him if he would, just recap some of the things that we should do in preparation. And we know we need insurance. And what else should we do in preparation for ourselves, passing?
Right. So what you would do is you would get with your local funeral home, find a funeral home that you feel comfortable with and you trust, and talk to them about pre-planning. And what the pre-planning does at the funeral home is it makes sure that your funeral expenses are paid for and taken care of, and it locks you in from inflation. Also, we do here at Serenity. So, say you chose a casket, that casket won't be more in another 5 or 10 years. We can kind of lock you in, and it's always important because a lot of people say, okay, I work in corporate America and they have group insurance, and so I'm covered. And so that can be true to an extent. If you're still working for that company, you're covered. But some companies may not cover you no more if you're terminated, or if you've been, if you quit that job and you're not working there anymore and you've been paying so much money into group insurance. I always like to tell families to always have a separate life insurance policy outside of your work so that it will help during that transition. So let me give you an example. If I'm working corporate America and I'm still working for my job and I pass away and I've been putting money away into a group policy, that group policy will pay out. Okay. And it will take care of most of your funeral expenses. But if you have a life insurance policy outside of that, now some of that money can be used to take care or continue to take care of your family that you're leaving behind. And so we always want to make sure that we have enough, or just, something in place to kind of ease that transition, how me and Marcus was talking about earlier about transitioning. And so, just make sure that we're having an extra policy outside of our corporate. But pre-planning at the funeral home is always good. You can, pay as much as you want. You can pay as little as you want. And it's just always really, really nice to know that people are really coming to take care of that. You could take care of your plot through us. We will work with the cemeteries also to do that also. And it just cuts down a lot of confusion. We like to see families, kind of grieve the natural way. We find a lot of times when families come in, they are stressed out. They're wondering, how are we going to get this money in 2 weeks?
Mhm.
How are we going to come up with $8,000 in a week and a half?
Mhm.
Right. And then that one person in the family that may be a little, well off than everybody else, they're like, oh no, I don't know if I can, flip the bill, And so, we had a family member, I say 2 months ago, I talked to on the phone, and she was really angry. She was really upset that her brother died and didn't have anything prepared. It was almost like she was angry at him.
Mhm.
And she's yelling at me as if it was him. She was like, I cannot believe he didn't have anything, And so, it's just really sad sometimes when families have to go through this. But being able to go to a funeral home that you feel comfortable with, talking to the pre-planning department, and start making payments for your funeral expenses.
Does it usually cost just to go in for a consultation?
No,
Or
not at all.
okay, okay.
Not at all.
Mhm.
Andre, we touched on a few critical points during our meeting, and I wanted to recap on some of those, because I think that some of our viewers need to hear this. Some of our community needs to hear this. You talked about pre-needs. A part of that pre-planning is to be sure that if there's a pre-need, it's taken care of during that time. And we like, what is pre-need? What is pre-need? My personal experience is that I learned during my son's passing that it doesn't matter who has the insurance policy, the insurance policy owner.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter if the insurance policy owner has the money or the policy or whatever. It is the next of kin. So if you're the mother, if you're the father, if you're, sisters and brothers, and you're the policy owner, it's still the next of kin that's in charge of everything. And that you, as the director or the planner or the ranger, you all still have to adhere to that.
That's
You and to me, I was like, well, wait a minute. If the person's paying for everything, you can't, if you're not named the next of kin. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because I was kind of blown away about that, because it doesn't matter if you have the money, if you're paying for the whole thing. If the spouse, or next of kin don't want to do it that way, it's however they want, right?
Yeah, so I can speak on that a little bit. We had a family that come in, and the mom had a life insurance policy on her son. And so they had the money to do whatever they needed to do for his burial. But as she was continuing to try to talk about, I want to look at this casket and I want to look at that casket, the wife shut the mom down and said, I'm the next of kin. I'm the wife. And so I'm going to be picking out the casket. I'm going to be telling everybody when the funeral service is and things like that. And so, and the mom was looking at me like, do something. And I'm telling her, legally, we cannot do anything. When you pass away, it goes for the decisions, it is left up to the next of kin. You can have a life insurance policy on that person all you want, but it goes to the next of kin. If that person isn't married, it goes to your kids. It goes to the older kids. If you don't have any kids, then it goes to your parents. Okay. And so
wait a minute, you mean the policy or you talking about the decisions?
the decisions when it comes to when it comes to burial or cremating. You know, the mom who had the policy on her son said that we want to bury, and the wife was like, I want to cremate. And so that decision is always left up to the next of kin. And so it is always important for families to, you know, kind of, you know, be nice to each other, because you never, you never know.
But you said also, if there's a pre-need, if there's a pre-need that's established already, that overrides even that. So yes, let's talk about that, because we do also know those wives who show up, or those husbands that show up, that next of kin, you show up after several years and now you want to run stuff, and we've been here with him, and I was there with him while he was sick and everything else, and now here you come in, but boom, he has a pre-need. Talk about it.
The pre-need is always important, because the pre-need is something that you established. It's in your handwriting. It's something that it's your last will and testament. It is yours. And so no matter the next of kin or not, this is something that you did for yourself. So that oversees everything. And so it's always important to go get a pre-need. I tell people this also: if you can't go get a will, or you haven't made it to a funeral home to do a pre-need, write yourself a letter. Write down everything that you want in your handwriting. You take it to go get notarized, and you mail it to yourself. Mail it to yourself. Take that letter, put it somewhere in a drawer, in a shoebox, but you make sure that you tell someone where that letter is, because now that is your last will and testament in your writing, and it's notarized. And so we find a lot of families who have done that also. And so and we may get that wife that's been separated from her husband 5 to 6 years, and she thinks she's coming in to bark orders, and then all of a sudden that letter comes out that's notarized in your handwriting. No say so.
Andre, I have a question. At what age should either a married couple, individuals, consider taking out a burial insurance plan?
I like to tell people 18 years old. 18 years old. When you're able to, why 18? I left home when I was 18 years old. I went to college, and I hadn't been back home since. And so I've been out on my own since. And so I would like to say and encourage people at 18 years old, when you are old enough to make decisions on your own, go out and get a policy on yourself, because you never know. People like to say that, you know,
I'm gonna live forever.
You're here today and gone tomorrow. I don't like that quote. My quote is, you're here today, you're gone today. Sometime there is no tomorrow.
Right.
Okay. We have people that woke up this morning that just will not make it back home today, the same day. And so I like to say 18 years old.
Yeah, you've seen a lot of young people who have died without policies. You can give us a little information on that, because I'm sure they thought that, well, I'm young, I don't have to think about that right now.
Yeah. And let me
Well,
add before you answer that, Andre, let me add, because that brought up another thing. You said you do a radio show, and you talk to young people, young adults about this. So, answer what Linda said, but could you also tell us about that?
yeah, I think it's very important for young people to start preparing for their future. And so, we hear it all the time when we were kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a fireman, or I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a lawyer. But I think a lot of times it needs to be said, well, how are you going to plan for it if you don't make it past that age or to your profession? And so on my show, I like to talk to the younger crowd, because I do have a sports talk radio show, and we're talking sports. And so I use that as a platform to really tell people to be prepared, because what we find here at the funeral home, it's not just 80s, 90-year-olds, 70-year-olds that are coming through the funeral homes. It is teenagers, young 20s, young 30s, young 40s that are passing away. We just had a tragedy where someone went into a school and opened fire on elementary school kids. And so, trust me, that funeral home that was in that state never thought that they would have a plethora of young kids come through the funeral home. And so this tells you that people are dying at a young age nowadays, and we have to be prepared. And so that's what I talk about on my show. And so it's really drilling into the young audience, because it's not just old people in the funeral home. We have young people here also.
My grandbaby died, and he was 4 months old. It was something we did not expect. The funeral home was really wonderful, and they helped us. And I think that, we didn't have to do a GoFundMe or anything. People just knew our family and knew the tragic of losing a child, and they helped. But I still had to end up paying some more money to the funeral home afterwards. We still, it would have been nice to have something in place, but who expects a 4-month-old to die? Who expects, my son-in-law, it was my daughter and my son-in-law's baby, but my son-in-law, his first cousin, 3 children, just last year or year before last, I think it was the year before last year was a birth for me. Maybe it's last year, burned up in a house.
Wow.
These are all little children, 3 little children burnt up in a house. Who expects that? Nobody expects that. Even though we say, 18-year-olds, because sometimes 18-year-olds, they're invisible. Oh, you start thinking about final expense when you get old. Like you said, people don't want to have those conversations. We don't want to talk about debt. You always got to talk about debt. Death happens, but I think that because we're so busy, caught up with life, that we keep putting death on the back burner until it shows its face in our family. And it just, it was really nice to know that, the funds. My son and my daughter-in-law, both of them had really prepared as far as, some savings, but they had to go into their savings.
Yes.
They had to go into their retirement, their 401k, because he left corporate. Like I told you, been in corporate for 10 years, left corporate. I didn't tell our family this, our group this, but he left corporate and he went and he started his own business. And so he started his own business. Guess what he lost? That group life insurance.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, he lost a group, but he didn't lose his 401k. He didn't lose his retirement. And because he passed from COVID, but what if it had not been COVID? Because he passed from COVID, they were able to recoup the burial expenses or the funeral expenses. But what if it were not COVID?
Mhm.
That would have
Right.
just been that out of their retirement. And he wanted to leave that for his daughter and his wife, you know? And so, they had to tap into it, but I was thinking, God, thank you, Jesus, that was there because they was able to go get the money. And it's really nice when you have things in place. Like you see, tell us some of the benefits when these families come in and they got it all set, like your friend, they found it, but just to know where it is. Because I asked my mom today, one of my sisters, she said, oh, your sister been having life insurance on her and her son for years. And I
Where
said,
is it?
Mom, so let me ask you something. What if she passes now? Where's that information? And then I said, Mom, where's yours? You know where mine is. It's in that black folder. I said, yeah, but I don't know I don't know the name or what, you have to. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. We just need to make sure that we all get on the same page and get this stuff straight, because, I'm knowing now that this is critical. And I should know that. Hey, if you guys feel like you didn't know that, if you feel like I know a lot, right? Yeah. But Marquise is the one that could really drive this home. And I can't wait until next show, because he's really going to just lay it out. There's a really great stuff. And Andre, you are really giving us a lot of good, valuable information. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
One of the things that you talked about that kind of drives this home is that parents often need to also look at having riders on their own insurance for their children. We're talking about children. Some parents may not want to do that for superstitious reasons, whatever, but you can do it for almost a little bit of nothing, have a rider for the children on your insurance. And so that they are covered too at a minimal expense. It doesn't cost that much to have those riders, and it covers your children, sometimes 18 to 21 or whatever, sometimes up to 24, depending on the policy or whatever. So parents can look into that for children too.
Linda, I'm really glad. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because that was about to be my next point. When you come in for pre-planning, I know one of the pre-planning insurance companies that we deal with here at Serenity, it covers not only your children, but your great grandchildren, and also your stepchildren and step great grandchildren, and it gives you a peace of mind knowing that those people in your family, your great grandchildren and your step great grandchildren and your stepchildren will be covered. And it even covers your pets. It even covers your pets too. Yes. And so these are things that people don't know about, and that will cover you and your entire family. Okay. I just think it's one of the most thoughtful ways to express your love to a family is making arrangements in advance. This helps avoid hasty decisions and financial pressures, and emotional burdens are fixed because of that. And so we want to really take care of the entire family as a whole, and there are options out there. And so no wrong question is a bad question. So find someone, whether it be us here at Serenity or someone that you feel comfortable with at a funeral home, and just go get that pre-need.
I want to take her.
I have a question.
Okay.
What can be done to bring about awareness? I feel, and as most of you feel, that a lot of folks are dying today without insurance. So how can we bring about education, awareness? Hey, you need to get this done. Education classes, YouTube videos. I think that there needs to be more awareness, because, like you said, a lot of folks, they don't think about dying.
Right.
And they don't think about pre-planning their funeral expenses. So how can we bring about awareness on this subject?
That's a really good question. I just would like to say, when you're talking, whether it be to an older person or a young person, just bring it up. Being able, I think most funeral homes should do workshops, have lunch-ins, have, you know, Zoom meetings, and just putting as much information out there as possible so that families can know what to do or know who to talk to. I think finding that platform to let everybody know is kind of tricky, because not a lot of people want to talk about it. You still get people who come to the funeral home and lose their loved one and say, I'm going to get me a life insurance. And then as soon as they leave the funeral home, that's not what they do.
Yeah.
That's not what they do. And, just being able to constantly push them. I know one thing I'm going to tell you guys I'm going to do. My oldest daughter is 20 years old. And so for her 21st birthday, I will be giving her a life insurance policy that she can take over from that point on. And when my other two kids turn 21, that is going to be their 21st gift from me, from dad, is a life insurance policy for yourself.
Now I got to play the angel's advocate here. I got to play the angel's advocate. You said 18. So why they wait till they 21? You can give it to them for graduation now.
Now I already have one on them. 21 is when they start paying for themselves.
Gotcha. Oh, gotcha. Oh, okay.
21, you're gonna have to.
Go ahead. 21.
No,
okay. So 18, you get it. 21. No, you probably have it for a while. I wanted to just take a moment and read some of these comments. Okay. Let's see. We said, where you go? Okay. Shelly, thank you, Shelly. Shelly said this is very important and necessary. She wants to know where you're located. So we want to get all of that information here because we're about to wrap up in just like a couple of minutes here. And then she says, as a life, Ashley, let's see. So that was Shelly. Ashley said, as a life insurance provider, I appreciate the conversation as well. Ashley, is okay. Oh, she said she's always Ashley Dweller Jones, whatever, State Farm. She's always available to assist families as determine how much their needs. And you guys do that too, don't you? At your service. Okay. And
we do.
Carla said, great information. My family will not have to worry about burying me. I am on a prepaid plan myself. I love this. And then Ashley said, yes, next of kin issues get really hairy when the deceased has a spouse who they have been separated from for years, but never officially divorced. Business owners are eligible for key person life insurance, and so are they employers. So there's so much people need to know, she said. And our European brothers and sisters considered their parents' life insurance as a part of their retirement planning, of course. So do we. So the African brothers and sisters, just we want to spread the word more often. Than Ashley, also 21 is the age when ownership can be transferred. Thanks so much, Ashley. Thanks, Carla. Thanks, Shelly. Thanks, everyone, for all of your comments. Thanks, Stacy and Alicia. We really, really thank you all so much for participating in the conversation. And we love you too. And so to wrap up, just give us those final words and those final thoughts from all of you, I'm done. I just want to say this. we're not done with this conversation. In 2
Right.
weeks, we'll have another conversation. We're not done with this conversation because this is so important. We can bury our head in the sand, but death happens.
Yes.
Death happens. And what do you say? Minimize the stress of the mess, right, Linda? So
Yes.
Yes, minimize the stress, don't leave a mess.
Don't leave a mess.
Andre, thank you so much for being with us. Andre is Serenity Funeral Home in Las Vegas, Nevada. If
Yeah.
you would like to contact, you can contact him through us or just look him up, online or whatever in Las Vegas. And thank you, my co-host, sister and brother. Love you all. And
You
we're
too.
going to continue this conversation in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
An insurance agent who's going to show us what we really need to do. And so thank you all for tuning in and being a part of this conversation and supporting for our success. We look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. Okay, bye for now.
All right. Thank you. God bless.
Okay. Good show.